welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Tommy Victor. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Sean? Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you'd be on. I'm glad I've been trying to reach out to you earlier in the year. Actually, this is kind of cool because when I spoke to you before, you were in the process, I think, of moving in or having your baby. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I have another one too. I have a 3 year old and a 6 month old now. I know it's crazy.
Dude, that's bananas, man. I can't even get up at night, right, to like walk down the hall without like getting a drink of water without hitting the wall at this point in my life. My kids were, I had them when I was young, so I knew I was not gonna have the energy for it.
Yeah, no, I mean it does take a lot of energy. And I have an older daughter too, should have known, but no, I mean everything's good. It's cool. Um, it's challenging, but it's worth it.
It is good. I joke 'cause I have like a friend that has kids when he was older, twins. I'm like, ah, man, I get tired just watching it now at my age, man. It's good for you and your the energy you have. I mean, the album. That's what we're going to talk about. The album is you have. It doesn't sound like you've slowed down at all, and it's fantastic. It's the album State of Emergency out October 6th. This Friday, right? The 6th is Friday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I previewed it, and if you're listening, it's great. I mean, you want to be getting it right when it comes out. It sounds like it's like a greatest hits sound of all your best sounds. Like you've really just you've always had a certain sound, but it feels like all your favorite nuances of prong are embraced on this album. Like you've just this is how you do it now. And not having prong for a while, I think it's great to have it back and be as stronger. Actually, feels stronger. It feels like there's a new confidence or something. I don't know what it is about it. It just feels different. Um, Maybe you could expand on why it just feels so different now.
I agree on the whole comment that you just made. I just think that it's ingrained in my style. Those first five prong records, and I kind of feel like that's it. We broke a lot of ground earlier, so I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel now.
Mm.
Uh, if anything, I'll take a little bit of influences from modern bands here and there, but for the most part, my style is just those early records, and maybe I got a little more thrashy, and my solos have gotten better as time is going on. Uh, yeah, I don't know if it's purposeful. It's just I sat down, wrote songs, and that's what came out. And there's always the umbrella of prong when writing. I don't really get beyond that, or the bubble of prong, and I don't really want to go beyond that anymore. And because I've always been jealous too of bands like AC/DC and the Ramones that have that sound.
Yeah,
And like prong has always been, well, what are we doing? What do we do? Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. The other thing. So as I look back, I wish we would have had that sound or just decided to stop back then. Now I have stopped. I'm like, this is what it is, and I'm staying within those confines.
I think you had a couple albums, or maybe you still kept it in there. You kept the flavor of it in there. It just kind of changed up a little bit. And I think because you created us. The thing that's crazy to me is two things. That you're a fantastic guitar player, and I've heard you dog yourself in the past about your good playing. You are fantastic. So you were at that level, and you created a sound with prong from the very beginning. I saw you guys when 1990. You guys were playing with Pantera. I saw you twice on that
Okay.
tour. Was it Beg or was it between Beg and the other one? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean,
It was right time.
yeah, I mean, that was beg to differ. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were fantastic. I mean, and you haven't, lost it. I mean, the sounds are just so good. I mean, it was a good show too. You guys, that was a Pantera was first breaking out, and you guys were just two strong bands on tour.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, Pantera was stronger. I mean, we didn't know we were doing that much back then, but it was just one of those things where the band started, and I just got hooked. I got really into it, and yeah, it was a matter of working my job and then coming home and practicing and writing and promoting the band. I just became obsessed. So, but we didn't really we didn't really gig that much early on. Like we didn't come from like a cover band background. So when I got a time to go out and play, we were a little. It was we didn't know what was going on that much. We were like a city, an urban band. We're like from the Lower East Side, and it was just a weird period. But like I said, like now I think that after all these years of playing, that now I'm like, yeah, I'm more comfortable with who I am as a guitar player. I'm not trying to fight everything that much. And I think that's important too. You know, it's like uh, I wish I had that earlier on. I wish
Do you
I've
think you
gotten
stepped
that.
out was different? I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'm sorry to make simple of you. Do you think stepping out of yourself and playing like with Danzig and doing things with ministry and doing all these other gigs allowed you to kind of come back in and re-see yourself again? Like and
Yeah, I
kind
don't
of
think that.
feel
If
comfortable?
I don't think it's hurt because then it's gotten me to be out in the world more and not have to wait when Prong gets the phone call. So uh, that was it's good and definitely Danzig, the discipline of those songs has uh, finally I think helped my guitar playing. It's been a really tough road on that band because I'm filling the shoes of a couple other guitar players, mainly John Christ, and yeah, it's been really hard trying to emulate what he did. So that has allowed me to practice, or has given me, she has got me off my butt to practice more. Ministry was kind of a free for all, and it was not really any discipline going on. But with Danzig, this like I'm definitely apart from Glenn, like the focal point of the band, and I don't like to make mistakes. So it's like I got in there and I just try to like dig deep and play as best as I can, and it's always a challenge. Every night I go out there and it's like, man, like, God, it's like, I wish I did that better or whatever. It's always something, but I try my best at that. So that has definitely now, like I started doing that a little bit more with Prong. Prong, I sort of like take it easy a little bit too because hey, like I wrote these solos, and if I don't do it exact, I mean, no one's really gonna care. So, uh, in that, like I've always have this more of a lax attitude about it. I think on the last tour, I was, concentrating more on, my playing and singing more than anything before, basically because we did a live recording and it was on like a TV show in Germany. So, like and it was we had to sign off on it. It was like, you can't go back and edit this. This is it. This is going to be on television. And
As is.
these are, yeah, these are the recordings and that's it. Like, you're going to have to accept that. And I was like, yeah, like, so I went for it, and it came out for the most part. There's a couple of solos I botched, but for the most part, it's not that bad. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Well, well, I want to step back and say one thing. I want to say, like, first off, playing John Christ is a fantastic guitar player, but in a way that he has a style and a nuance. And if you don't play guitar, or you do play guitar, you know this. It's not you can replicate a sound or a tone, and you can get all the presets done, whatever. But it's all in the fingers a lot of times. And to learn how to be somebody else's fingers is nearly impossible. So at that point, you're trying to honor. And dancing songs are, almost cult like in legendary, where it's really kind of unfair for anybody to be able to kind of just slide in and emulate somebody. I've never heard anybody say bad about your line about it, though, so you must be doing something pretty good. I've yet to see a Danzig show, since you've had it. But so you've already had you had a lot coming in. So the fact that you could come in and do that so well that the Danzig fans have eaten you up, and they sounds like a lot of them have loved you. It says a lot.
I think it's more like with Glenn because I've had criticism and I've responded to it with humility because there's no other way to do it. Uh, but I think the thing with that group and with ministry too is like we come from the same background where like Al has like a post-punk background, like
Yeah.
he's into all those groups, and like Glenn, which I'm into too. And then Glenn, we're almost in the same age group where we go back into 60s music big time.
Yep.
And then the whole glam rock thing, the early glam, which is like Sweet, T-Rex, and then punk rock, which essentially comes from the Dolls. So like the Dolls, Pistols, that, and then eventually into the post-punk scene. So yeah, I think that's where Glenn is like me. Like metal is like an afterthought. Like was sort of something, like we grew up on Sabbath, we grew up on Deep Purple, but like we put it aside. Like we got in the punk scene, alternative scene, and then we sort of brought metal back into it. So like Glenn and I are a lot aligned like that, and I think he appreciates that because there's not a lot of people that are from that background. So
Yeah.
like he, like to present Danzig and what he's about, you need guys that are from that background, sort of. So it's at least the guitar player. That's why he's got Zing. I mean, Zing is really a drummer, but he got him playing bass because we're from that same mold. Max is Kansas City, and CB's back, whole New York thing. So that's important too. That it's tough when with Prong too. It's like guys that are, where do they come from? What are they doing? Like that's why like Jason as a bass player, that he's always been, he comes from the same background, sort of, where he was into punk and metal and crossover. So it's hard to find those guys now. Like where they come from? Like the kids today, like they reach back. When they're reaching back into Avenged
To,
Sevenfold.
right. Or
So
Green Day,
it's
or and
just
it's not a dig. It's just it's
right.
not the
Green Day
same.
with Trivium or something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's not the same as where it came from, and you have the New York thing. And it is interesting because Danzig does have its own hard in the street sound, and Prong has too. So it's very similar. When they announced and you were switching over and you're playing guitar with them, it made sense, And in paper, it made sense. I'm like, oh, I get that. Who else is going to go in? I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
tough. Yeah.
how now? What are we doing for the tour? And then, like, I know sometimes he's still doing stuff with Danzig, and Danzig wasn't doing stuff, and then he is. How are we going to keep a balance? Because I hope that this is a resurgence. A Prong is going to keep going no matter what, and you balance it out with Danzig because I'm a big Prong
Yeah,
fan.
I don't think he's. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to do that much next year. And then like, there has been the recordings with Glenn, which they've interfered. Not, I mean, that's a bad word, but they've conflicted scheduling wise with Prong in the past. But he's not going to make any more records, and he's getting more and more selective about what gigs he's going to do. So yeah, I mean, uh, we got a tour, a big tour in Europe, the third tour this year in Europe coming up in November, and then we're going to do an American tour. I'm not going to do a huge amount of touring, but you know, I don't see it completely going away yet. And then maybe another record soon down the line after this one's sort of goes away, which these days that happens within a week or something. But
Well, it's a hard
sort of
thing. Yeah,
being
that was the thing. I mean, I hope that you have a couple more albums in you. I mean, I know it's a very physical, heavy album like this. The energy, I joke about it, but it's a heavy album. I just reached my friend. I'm like, when the album comes out, I said, you've got to check it out. It's heavy. And, and even, I got to say this, if I forget, the cover song at the end. Now, it's awesome. The Rush cover song you do, Working Man. And but when you hear
yeah.
when your favorite artist is doing a cover of one of your favorite artists, you're always like, oh, I hope it's going to be good because it could not always be the same. You know what I mean? And so when I heard it, I was like, it works. It's the song works. It sounds really, really good on its own. Like it's not you know,
I'm glad you like it. No, I
it's
mean it was one of those things. I mean, if you want me to comment on it, it was like
please, yes.
yeah, I mean, yeah, in the design of this record, uh, I decided to wait till we moved back to New York, my family. So I was just sitting around. Well, not sitting around. We were trying to get settled, and we were settled in an apartment at first. And it was just like it's not too far from where I grew up. So it's like the weather was really different. It was terrible. I mean, like I was used to living in LA, and like then so I was like,
Welcome
wow,
back
like
to the tri-state.
yeah, no, it's horrible. So but I enjoyed it, like in this that same kind of like attraction to misery that New Yorkers have. And it's like this it was just I was listening to the stuff that I did when I was a kid, this nostalgic thing, and that Rush record was one of them. So along with like Volume 4 by Sabbath, and multiple other things that I go back and forth to. But and this is before I started writing or deciding when we were going to start. So yeah, I mean, Working Man's always been a cool song, and the lyric is great. And I don't know. When I think of Rush, that's like the song. I don't think of 2112 or Temples of Syrinx as much as Working Man. So
Yeah.
sort of that first record is what I got into, and like Fly By Night second. But so yeah, I mean, I was fooling around with the Tony Iommi tuning, so we just used that on it, which is the C sharp standard, and so it sounds heavier. I think like they were in E Rush. We went down.
Everything is high.
Like
His voice is high. Everything's high in that. And everything is like really just.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, now these bands, it's like the bass player seems to be is like the treble guy in the band. Like it's like the guitars are tuned so low that the bass has to be the thing that has like the attack on it. It's just like
Yeah.
it's completely switched, which is bizarre to me. But whatever. I mean, a lot of these bands I happen to like, but it's just the way I can't. Man, I see you have guitars. I mean, the whole 8-string guitar thing is just crazy to me. I mean, but it's C sharp. Going down C sharp is really low for Prong. So I think that's the. Well, we went down on this record though. There's a couple of so we went to the drop A on ones. Did we?
Which
Maybe
one would that
not.
be?
I think I'm trying to think if we did go. No, we didn't. The B is the lowest on this record. So the drop B with non-existence. That's the lowest tuning we used.
Yeah. And that was actually the first single was a lyric video, right? That was the first
The
single.
first one was Breaking Point. Was a lyric video for that. That was a while ago, and then they released Non-Existence, which
That was
is another
yeah,
lyric video. Yeah,
backwards order, yeah.
yeah.
Which is a heavy song. I mean, the whole album. And I gotta say, I almost hear. I don't always usually hear because it's usually a powerful chorus. I'm actually hearing almost like a melody in your voice on some of these songs that I never heard before. Am I just hearing things, or is that actually a little bit something
Yeah,
you're kind of conscious
it's
of?
been there. Well, it's been there in the recent albums. At least we tried. Uh, but it may be more prevalent on this one. The thing that the difference between this record too than the last 3 new ones is been like the fact that I did write everything myself, and there's no collaboration on any of the stuff. So it's like I sat there myself and I said I'm writing 10 songs and that's it. And that's what I did. And so I don't know how that applies to the melodic side of it. Everything. It's just that it's that there's been a couple other attempts at melody, and those songs were collaborative. So I sort of like under a little bit under the direction of somebody else.
Yeah.
So it may have come across as a little bit more inauthentic. Where this is just, again, it's from that grab bag of post punk.
Yeah, it just feels like it pops to me
stuff.
differently on this album. I mean, like to
Yeah,
me, like a prong album, and this is honestly exactly what I'm talking to you. Prong always do a good. You always get a good album, but this is like a great album. Like you know what I mean? Every band goes up and down. You have some really great albums, but I always know I'm gonna get a good prong album. It's not gonna like suck. You know what I mean? Which is something as a fan, which is always good to know. That's a good album. I'll listen to it. But then when you get an album like this where it's great on so many different levels, you're like, oh, fantastic. And you hear things just each time you listen to it, and it feels like it's like a underlying melody in there, like that you would normally hear, just a little bit different, not a lot, but it's just perfect. And it could be the mixture of the song, the production, and how it all fits together is usually that the chemistry of the perfect storm or whatever for their song, is
yeah. I mean, a
paramount.
lot of it's is the luck of the draw, unless you're like John Fogerty, who just continued to like write killer songs one after the other, bam, bam, bam. They never stopped. Like Prong, we got lucky a couple of times. So it's like, or we didn't get lucky enough. It's hard these days because I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just seems the art of of rock songwriting is a weird in a weird spot. So, um, that's I'm always in that mode. Like, I mean, I'm always it always comes back to the song. Like, I don't uh, yeah, riffs start some of the songs, most of them. Yeah, lyrics have something to do with it too. But like the arrangement and the way the song is and how it ends and starts and what it says is really what you're trying to do, and that may be that is actually to the kids today in the metal genre. It's really old fashioned to them. Like it's uh, if you look at the structures now, and it's just like they want to break that, they want to completely uh, annihilate like that whole format. A lot of bands, and it's working for them. I mean, like what kids think is melody or what is arrangement is a different thing now. So I'm saying like like my stuff, my thing, like I said, it's based on like what you were mentioning with Glenn. It's like it's from anything from the Doors to Orbison to Johnny Cash to Sabbath to Sabbath really didn't have classic arrangements, mainly to Kiss to the Stooges to Killing Joke. It's like all in that mode.
Well, and I think yeah, the problem is some of these sounds now are going to become more niche sounds, and I think if anybody, I mean, you know this, you said this before, you came up with a sound, the prong sound that is like a whole generation of guitar players and bands. Obviously, Static was one of them. Have really taken your sound. It's like everybody just owes you a big check, big copyright check sent to you if you could, unfortunately. But the good thing is everyone's talking about it and everyone's giving you credit for what you've done. How did you like as a sound you kind of created though that you really just you come up with so many riffs like that? Like, were you just like messing around and it just evolve and one day you're like, holy Toledo? I mean, because out of the gate you kind of had that, you know,
I could really, I have an answer to that, and again, it's recalling what I just said in this interview, which points out, Killing Joke. I did not mention the Bad Brains earlier, but the Bad Brains were another band that was influential. So that those two bands with the percussive side of the guitar, and that maybe has something to do with the fact that I didn't even play guitar prior to Prong. Like I sort of learned it on the spot because we would just to form the band out of the club. So
yeah.
it was like I was playing bass in bands as a kid. So I had, it was more like with the drummer, like I always like uh, focusing on that. And that's where Prong, like, with Ted and I were so tight where, I was just like working, we were, jamming off riffs off of the kick drum, So, it's like I listen to like James Brown as much as I listen to, the metal. I really didn't. I really don't even. I got into. I referred to metal later, like when Metallica, like thrash came. I was like, well, this stuff is cool. So we sort of added that after the fact. So it essentially comes from that groove thing to begin with. So
All right.
like
Well,
that's the Metallica guitar sound on top of like. I mean, Killing Joke sort of had it too. I mean, Metallica tipped their hat to Killing Joke, which is like, they started the whole groove punk sound.
well, thank you for that. It totally makes sense because one of the things I've noticed when I've talked to artists on the show is depending on if you could, the guitarist is like your next instrument, but maybe you're known for it just point, obviously. But like you're like, yeah, I originally started on drums or bass, and it's usually that rhythmic thing you're hearing about. You go back and you listen to the song, you're like, well, that's what the difference is. Well, that's what it is right there. You know what I mean? It's that a drummer or a bass player starts out and then they're playing guitar. You get it always feels like it has that certain, I guess I always say cadence to it, has a beat to it. Where it's
Yeah. I mean, it had a lot to do with when we started. We were in the room fooling around, like in the basement too. Like that has a lot to do with it, and that's something that, God, I mean, like I don't do kids still do that? I don't even know. Like it's like they just transfer,
files.
files now. It's like, and like this new Prong record, we did not do that. We did not make a computer record on this record. Like it is pre-production, the whole thing. Like even more than what we did in Beg to Differ. So it was like, uh, I don't even think with Beg to Differ, we didn't even, the pre-production was like we rehearsed a couple of times. Like I showed the guys the songs, and then Mike had a couple of ideas, and we may have rehearsed like 3 times, and then went in with a couple of cases of beer and cut the tracks. That's how it was back then. Like with now, like with Steve Evans, we're there a week, like all day long, jamming the songs, changing the drum parts, changing this,
But man, the
getting.
sound on this one though is fantastic though. Oh, it
Yeah,
sounds
no,
so
I mean
good.
it's just
Oh,
it's just slamming like, but that's from you get in a rehearsal space, man, and jam. I like that. It's like I was enjoying that. Like I was like, all right, this is cool, man. Like I don't care. He's like, play and sing the song again, play and sing the song again. One more time to do it, like and then it's just like, dude, like it's like, all right, like it's like that's we just kept. It was like Phil Spector or something doing working. So
your wall of sound.
I
This
got.
album is fantastic. I want to thank you for your time. There's a couple of videos out for people to check out. You can
Thank
head
you,
over
Sean.
to the website. Check out your actually the Instagram is good and your Facebook page too. Um, I want to thank you, man. This has been fun.
Thank you,
Hopefully,
but
I
I
get to see
really
you on
appreciate
tour.
it.